my memory goes back a long time, 80 years, more than 80. And I did everything I wanted to do. I wanted to live in Westport, and that's what I did. Raced sailboats, got bigger boats as the days went on, or the years went on. Well, as a little kid, I spent every winter in Buffalo and every summer in Westport, Connecticut. And so I spent all winter waiting for the summer so I could get to Westport. And when I got married, my wife knew that we were going to live in Westport. And it just couldn't have been better. And my whole goal was to race sailboats. And when I was a little kid, I got a snipe, and I had to work in a newspaper, or just delivering newspapers in Buffalo for a whole winter so I could get the $115 it would cost me to buy my first sailboat. And I didn't have enough money. My father put in another 15 bucks, and I thought, oh man, I've died and gone to heaven. So, and then I just started sailing there, and we anchored it in front of our cottage on Campo Cove. I'd take my sail bags and put them on my back and then walk over to the yacht club every weekend, or practically every day, and sail. And it was a small yacht basin at the time, and it had mostly sailboats in there. I think it's now mostly yachts, powerboats. At one time I capsized, and they called it a zinger. I don't know why they did what they did. And I was a little kid, and I capsized, and I climbed up in a boat and got it righted, never sank, and we finished the race. That got into the newspaper because some little kid out there in the Sound, his boat capsized, and he still was able to sail away on it. What I loved about it was that it was like a summer community because there was no year-round water. And so these people, a lot of people came from New Jersey and other places, and they had cottages, and they were all boarded up in the wintertime. And it was just one gigantic camp because we had, everybody had boats, and out in front of our houses one time there were probably 20 boats anyway anchored out there. We had 2 or 3 of them ourselves. And you didn't have to do anything else because there were little kids like I was. And we had a community tennis court out there at the Cove. It was just, we ran into each other's houses all the time, and I just loved it. It was great for kids. It's 2 eras really. It's one era when I was a kid and what it was like, and then another era when I was married and had children. And we lived in New York for 2 years before we could find enough money to buy a house up here, and we bought a house for, I think it was $12,000, and my father-in-law said, you should never pay that much for a house. Last time it sold for, I think, $400,000. Oh no, $500,000. I offered $400,000. I thought I'd buy it and use it as an investment, and they turned me down. It's something that I paid 10 for the first time, or 12, I guess it was. I was chairman of the Board of Education. There was a time when we were building a school a year because the population was growing so rapidly, and we were replacing some schools with new schools. And it was very exciting. I was chairman of the Republican Party for, I think, 10 or 15 years, and that was the time when this was all Republican. Now it's all Democrat. We had all these wonderful things to do in Westport, but we didn't own Longshore, and we only had the one marina at Campo Beach, and I spent most of my time in the summer there because I had a sailboat and I raced it out of Cedar Point Yacht Club. And I'm the oldest living member of the Cedar Point Yacht Club. And so I proudly have number 1 in the book. And one of my best friends is number 2. And it really blew his mind that he couldn't be number 1. And that was an exciting time because Westport grew so fast. And commuting, not many people commuted, and I commuted for goodness, I don't know how many years, a long, long time. And that was routine for all of us. but there weren't many commuters when I first moved up here. It was fun. I loved to ride the train in New York. There were card games on the train, and I'd get on at Green's Farms, and there were some very wealthy men that had a little card game, and I would watch them. And pretty soon I became a member of the group, and they were all old enough to be my father. And we became good friends. We had them down to the cottage and all that kind of stuff. But I kept a booklet, and I kept score, and we paid for a penny a point, very little money. But I kept score in my book so that even when I was traveling on business, and they would save the scores for me so that I could put them into the book, because it became competitive among them, all of us. There were probably 6 or 7 of us that played in the game. When we had 4 regulars, and then people had filled in, and it was a lot of fun. It was a privately owned club, and it wasn't making any money. And there was one man who was going to buy it, and he was going to develop it into housing development. And I've forgotten how many houses. It was going to be a lot of houses with no golf course. And so I suggested to Herb Baldwin that the town buy it. And a guy named Julius Baller owned it, and he gave us 9 days to get it approved by the town of Westport. Only 9 days, and it's the first time that Westport's ever moved that fast, because you had to get the Board of Finance and the RTM and everybody to approve it, and we did it in 9 days. And then we gave, how did that work? Oh, I know what signed the deal at the price of $1,975,000 or 500, 1,000,009 something, I think. And anyway, we were having trouble getting him to settle on a price, and finally the man who was negotiating with Julius on our behalf said, "I'll tell you what I'll do, Julius, we'll give you a lifetime gold pass to Longshore." And he said, "Sold." So there's these little stories that go on all over town, and nothing like that happens now, because we're all settled and everything. There's no room to do anything, and you maybe can change a little things here and there. But before that, everything was new. We were a booming town. We were getting a lot of commuters in here, and people were building homes, and it was just fantastic and very fast growth. And there was one time, I've forgotten, our children, before they got through the elementary school, were in maybe 3 or 4 different buildings. And it was just, but there's nothing like being in the beginning of something, and that's what it was, because before that it had just been a country town. So we put in the marina, and we put in another, then the yacht club rented the little clubhouse there, and so then a friend of mine found out that he could buy a swamp across the river over at Saugatuck Shores, but it was a swamp. And so we bought it, the club bought it, and dug out the marina, and created that whole thing. And then we had a bunch of home sites right on the water. They were for $25,000 apiece, and then some that were on the marina but not on the sound. Those were only $12,500, and I kept saying that's too much money. So now these lots that were for $25,000 are now worth $1 million. That shows you how dumb I am. All these opportunities, and I blew up. So, and then we all went out to Longshore. My wife we had a birthday party out there one time. We went out with 3 little sailboats that we owned for different sizes, for different ages of kids, plus a motorboat and a canoe. And the whole family went out and had a birthday party on Kikini Island for one of our kids. And my wife baked a cake on Kikini Island for that party. So, and I got a whole lot of stories like that. Got to know Paul Newman and Martha Stewart and Lucille Ortel very well, but that's because it was a small town, or it was a small town. Why, you knew everybody. When I was president of the library for 4 years, I'm the only person that's been president that long, but I was president when we got the land, ran it through the town of Westport, got it approved. I have a picture here somewhere of me flying a flag when after it was approved by the RTM and everything. That was our victory. And I've been president of a lot of different things in town, and I'm always trying to run something. Now I'm very involved at Earth Place at the moment. I was at the beginning of that. When Earth Place started, I got involved with John Ripley Forbes, who formed it, and then I kind of was the person that eased him out because he could build the buildings and get the money, but then he couldn't run them. And so we had to run it. And there was a time when I ended up, this is small time stuff, I ended up paying the salaries for the staff, and I didn't have any money, so I went to the only bank in town, which was the Westport Bank and Trust, and Einar Anderson was the owner and president. And I went in and I said, Einar, can you loan me some money to pay the salaries? And he loaned it to me on my signature. I didn't have to put down any security or sign any bills or anything like that. And but it was only one bank. And I don't know how many we've got now. But and Earth Place was wonderful. My wife created the first programs for little tiny kids, training little kids. And our children, when my wife died, our children, after the memorial service, they didn't come home here, they went to Earth Place. Well, Westport's just been I don't know, I've never been, I mean, this has been a happy time for me living in Westport. I've had, you know, we all have ups and downs in business and things like that, but basically, Westport was my life.